Always great to welcome our next guest, a good friend of us on the show and a good friend of us here in Sarasota for those listening locally. A great jazz artist, singer, guitarist, and he has a brand new CD out. We're going to talk about that. It is called Better Days Ahead, a solo guitar celebration of Pat Metheny. And, of course, we're talking about John Pizzarelli, who we talked to on the telephone from up in New York today. And, John, good to talk to you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's a beautiful spring day, and can't be better. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I was just checking. It was about a year and about a month ago we chatted last because you were headed our way here in Sarasota right before it hit the fan, and we never got to see you.
That's right. I just missed by about 2 weeks, and I've been here ever since. So it's been a crazy time.
Yeah, I know you
to
had.
say the least.
I know you had kind of a rough time. Obviously, your dad and your mom both, since we talked to you, passed away. Our condolences to that. But
thank you.
It was a tough time for that, obviously, and then of course the whole pandemic thing with all of you artists just having to be at home, right?
Yeah, it was just crazy. You know, I came up here on March 13th, and I've pretty much been here for a year, and but I was able to. Spend a lot of time playing the guitar, and that's how I ran into the songs for this record.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that. I did some shows at a station here in Tampa when I first came down here in the early 90s, a jazz station, but they played primarily the more modern stuff, and we played a lot of Pat Metheny jazz. So I'm a little bit familiar with his work, and you hear it on like kind of the smooth jazz stations. But your dad actually worked with him, right? Did you work with him as well?
I never worked with him, but we were able to. We saw Pat in the 80s. My father and I together, and there's just so many good songs that came out of his repertoire that I figured, well, they had to start as guitar songs. I thought, since he's a guitar player, and they're rather melodic and beautiful tunes. So that's how I sort of stumbled into that.
And this is just literally, and I got a chance to listen to it. It's great. You doing, like in the title, a solo guitar celebration. So it's just you and the guitar. And I know you've done some others like that as well, other CDs. Have you done total solo before? I thought you had.
Not total solo guitar. I mean, I did guitar duets with my dad where I didn't sing on those records. So this is the first one just by myself and not singing. So it's sort of was an adventurous little idea.
Yeah, how is that? Obviously, how do you decide what you're going to do? Do you just kind of work through it on your own and then say, this is how I'm going to do it, or do you kind of ad-lib it as you're playing?
Yeah, well, in this case, excuse me. In this case, I had been playing the song James, which is sort of a popular tune of Pat's, and I really worked on that for a while, and I was up here, so I posted some of them on Instagram, and my buddy Rick Hayden, who was the co-producer of the record, was seeing these. There were like 3 Instagram posts of 3 different songs, and he said, stop right now, and actually let's talk about you should make a record of this stuff. So I was able to go in my back room. I had a little iPad and plug into it and play, and then after I would make a few takes, I'd send them to my friend Rick in Illinois, and he would shine them up and send them back my way. And he said, you got 10 more, 14 more of these, you got yourself a record. So it was just we had nothing else to do, so we they threw us lemons and we made lemonade.
Oh yeah. Do you record it? You have your own studio then? You recorded it at home?
No, my studio was my daughter, who's now 23 and not at home anymore, had a little bedroom in the back. So I put the iPad on the bed and plugged into that. So that was the studio.
Yeah, no, I mean the sound is tremendous. But obviously now you can do everything. You got the nice phone line or whatever, or radio line or whatever.
Right.
It sounds like the old studio days, even better probably.
Yeah. So I prefer the studio, but this was just what needed to be done. And luckily, Rick, who was in Illinois, had all the little compressor and the reverb units and the things to shine it up there. So it was just it was a crazy time.
One of the songs, and is one that you've used, and we'll talk about also the show that you do each week, the radio show, Radio Deluxe, I should say, with your wife, Jessica Molaski. But Last Train Home, that's actually your theme song, right, or closing theme?
That's our closing theme every week on the radio show, and that was also, I hadn't even thought of that tune until a buddy of mine, we were walking. We walk every day around 4:00 for an hour or two, and he said, why aren't you doing Last Train Home? And I was like, okay. So I went home and started to find where that would work on the guitar. So that was another fun one for the record, and one of his really popular songs.
What do you think made Pat Metheny, or makes Pat Metheny stand out? Obviously the talent, but is there something different that made him kind of a legend?
Yeah, I think he's just a great composer. I think that's on top of his guitar playing, which is wonderful, and he's done so many different things. But these first about 6 records that I was really hooked on between my ages, I guess, of 17 and 34. I think where I drew most of the material from, were really they were sort of hit jazz records, and there were really great songs in there. And so the idea for me was to find those ones that would work on the guitar, and then instead of trying to play like single note solos, try to play like a Joe Pass kind of idea on them, was more of a chordal approach. Because Rick and I decided, well, we're not going to play better single note than Pat did on his own song. So I tried to find like a Bucky Pizzarelli approach to the tunes that would make it sort of singular to me. And I thought that worked out quite nicely.
Yeah, kind of your improvisational style fits nicely into what he wrote. Is that what you kind of did?
Yeah, and he wrote and the songs are very melodic and challenging and wonderful, and what he did with them was so great. And I figured, well, if I just stripped them down, and I had to think about what the band was doing, like Lyle Mays on the keyboard might be playing the melody, so I was trying to find that on the guitar inside the chords that were played by the rest of the band. So it really it made for a great idea.
Right, yeah, you don't have your rhythm section with you, so you had to provide all of that as doing a solo.
Yeah, so and it was fun because it was also something I had seen my dad do. When I was growing up, he was learning classical guitar, and that was outside of what he was doing as a jazz musician. And for me, this was it wasn't just playing the songs that my father had played, like Tangerine or Swinging on a Star or Emily or things like that. It was a brand new set of ideas and melodies that I was trying to use my father's approach to.
I should tell maybe a few people that are not aware, of course, Bucky Pizzarelli was John's dad, one of the all-time great jazz guitarists as well. And I know you talked about your dad, like you said, known as jazz primarily, but he would practice doing classical music, right, before shows.
Yeah, and that was every day he'd get up and find a piece of music. I remember the classical ones in particular, and I think that also helped him in the early 60s when the bossa nova craze came in. He had his classical guitar, so he did a lot of bossa nova dates. He was finding another element to. It wasn't just about playing rhythm guitar on maybe a Ray Charles record, but he ended up playing classical guitar on Jobim records too. Right. So it was always looking for a different avenue, and I think that was the other reason why I was looking for different songs to play as a solo guitarist.
Yeah, we should talk just a few minutes about your dad. Of course, we don't have time to touch on everything he did, but of course, you worked on the original Tonight Show, didn't he? Mostly with Johnny Carson, or did he do it before that as well?
No, he came in with Skitch, so
Skitch Henderson,
with Skitch Henderson, and then with Doc Severinsen. I think they left in '72. For the Coast, but he was on that show. He was on staff at NBC. Then he did a lot of the Dick Cavett shows. He did also out of on ABC for a while, and he was on the first. There was a show called Saturday Night Live that Howard Cosell was the host of, and so he was in that band too. So he did a lot of that television work, and then during the week he'd be on a lot of records. In the '50s, he was on all the Dion and the Belmonts and Del Shannon, and he was on the Benny King's Stand By Me and Under the Boardwalk and records like that, and played rhythm guitar on Ray Charles, Georgia, and some Tony Bennett records also. And so he was always bopping around, and then at night after they'd record the TV show, The Tonight Show, he'd go into jazz clubs and either play solo guitar or work with George Barnes or Les Paul or Zoot Sims, and it was quite a life he had.
Yeah, he was the quintessential working musician, right? Always looking for the next gig, huh?
Yeah, and amazingly finding it. So that was we were very lucky that way. He was, but that's why all that practice paid off. It was amazing.
Did you ever appear with your dad on the Tonight Show with Johnny? I know you've probably been too young for the New York version, but later on, did you ever work the Tonight Show with Johnny?
No, never with Johnny. My sisters actually went to the show. They still talk about it, but I was too young to go in New York, but I did get to go on in L.A. with Jay Leno. I had my trio on the show a couple of times out there too. So
I
that's as close as I got to. I got to Burbank. I got to the studio, but I didn't get to meet Johnny.
I took the tour, but there was no show that day, so I did see the
right.
The exactly. You and I are the same age. I just wondered. I know you've been quite young, but I wasn't sure if you had ever appeared with Johnny, maybe toward the end of his run,
Right. It was just by the time it was at the end of his run, I had my first album out. All of Me was out, but everybody, everybody was going to be on the show at that time, so I just missed getting a shot to be on there.
Yeah. Of course, Johnny appreciated jazz. I mean, that band hasn't been anything on TV since, right? That band.
Yeah, it was a great band, and then you could always. I mean, it's amazing. If you go on YouTube, you can see Dave Frischberg, Joe Williams, Tony Bennett, Frank Sinatra all appeared on that show. It was amazing.
Right. Talking with John Pizzarelli. The name of the CD is called Better Days Ahead. It's a celebration of guitar solos that John does, of Pat Metheny compositions. We mentioned briefly before the radio show that John does. It's syndicated. You can hear it all over the country, and, of course, online. You can get it as well. It's Radio Deluxe, and once a week you do that with your wife, Jessica. Obviously, you enjoy doing it. I guess now it's just kind of been a little bit different for you doing it. You've been home the last year. Have you added more to the show since you've been home?
Yeah, it's funny. In previous years, we've been on 16, almost 17 years, and we do the show from our living room, and now we've done it from up here, and we've been able to do a show every week for the entire year. I don't have to go anywhere to go, so it's one of those things where we've also been able to get that show up and running, and it's been a lot of fun. People are just being where they are in their houses, have had a great opportunity to sit down and listen to the show. So it's had quite an impact this past year.
Yeah, great show. And, of course, since last we talked to you, which I've seen several artists do, I think you might have been one of the first. Dina Martin has done it, a weekly show on Facebook. You do yours with you and your wife from home, a great video show. You can watch it as well. Do you enjoy doing that?
Yeah. Yeah, every Thursday at 6 p.m. on my John Pizzarelli official Facebook page. At the beginning of the week on that page, I take requests, and then I make a list, and on Thursdays I perform it for everyone. And then Jess sings with me too, and that's been quite successful. It's sort of our own little TV show, 6 p.m. Eastern every Thursday.
I put in an early request last year when I first saw you were doing it for I Like Jersey Best, and you played it, so thank you. I may not be the only one that requested it, but you did play it, so thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks.
That was one of the first things I heard you do on a station. I know we've talked about it before, the old WNEW, which you were part of as a DJ for a while as well.
Yeah, I did swinging Saturday night for about a year and a half, and was on Jonathan's program. He had one called New York Tonight that was on a weeknight program, 6 to 9. Yeah. Oh, it was an amazing time. I was really lucky. From about 83 to almost to 92 or so, we had a great run on all the live radio programs that they had on NEW, and that 50,000 watts that was an amazing thing.
I saw Jonathan just finally hung up the microphone. He was doing a show that you could hear online, and I just saw a post on Facebook maybe a month ago that that's it. I guess he had enough, but he had a great run. Yeah,
well, it was a long time of being on the radio, starting on one of the first voices on FM, and then having that iconic Sunday program for so long. So he can rest his voice now, and he did a great job for a long time.
So you listened to him recently. Sounds the same as I remember him when I was first started hearing him, I guess, in the 70s. The voice, I guess he's in his 80s, but you would never tell from the voice. Sounds just the same.
I know. It was great, and the material was always good, and it was one of those programs, too, that introduced a lot of new voices to the songbook,
right.
and it was, and as well as keeping an eye on the past, too. So it was just it was a really wonderful program.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, John, obviously things seem to be loosening up a little bit. I'm not sure how much for you folks that we're used to touring, performing. What's it look like in the near future for not only you, but just jazz and performing in general?
Sure. Well, we're keeping our fingers crossed. I mean, hopefully, I'm hoping for the fall. I'm hoping for September would be terrific. So with everybody getting vaccinated and everybody being careful still, I think we can see a little light at the end of the tunnel. It'd be great to see people in a club in front of me, and I'd love to be playing for all of them, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
I guess you have to have some kind of leeway time because to book the venues. It's not like, all right, everything open today, you can't start tomorrow. It takes a little time, right, for these venues
right,
to open up.
And they're still booking like in July, and there are places that even last year at this time we were still thinking, maybe September,
right.
But they just would keep pushing them back. So there are dates out there. I think the date to be most promising would be Jessica and I at the Carlisle. I think we would open November 9th. So I think that one would seem like that would be the one I'm shooting for.
I think the nightclubs or supper clubs are probably easier to separate a little bit, but still feel like you have a full room as opposed to an auditorium right now, right?
Right, and I do think though maybe by November we would see we could see a full club too. So, but I'm just a jazz musician.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I hope you can get that back down here to Sarasota. Unfortunately, they just canceled the Sarasota Jazz Festival again, so it won't be this year. But
amazing. Well, I was one of the first ones with my dad to play down there for Hal Davis, and it was it's a great place to go down to play, and I'm sure we'll be at Van Wezel before you know it, and. I'm looking forward to it. One of my dear friends is John Worthman. My college roommate lives right in Sarasota, so I'm hoping to see him too. So I'll keep my fingers crossed that we see you sooner than later.
It was supposed to be the 40th anniversary last year, right? I believe.
Right, I know. It's crazy, right? So.
But hopefully, we're going to have an outdoor version. They had it planned, but last week they said, I guess they can't do it. But anyway, we'll look forward to that. But once again, John Pizzarelli, Better Days Ahead, a solo guitar celebration of Pat Metheny is the new CD and available everywhere. Do you have a website too, John? They can get it?
JohnPizzarelli.com. And it's available, iTunes, Amazon. It'll be all over the place. So keep an eye out.
Great. We'll put a link as well on our website. But, John, always great to chat with you. I know you're busy doing even stuff at home, but a pleasure always to chat with you, and we'll do it again real soon, and we'll look forward to seeing you in person one of these days.
You bet, Doug. Thanks so much for taking the time. I'll see you soon.